Hi guys, and welcome to yet another review. This time around I'm bringing you an all KZ CCA affair, and it's going to be focusing on three IEMs that have been launched by KZ in the last month or so, namely the ZS10 Pro 2, the ZS10 Pro 2, and then the AS16 Pro X. This is a 1+1, this is a 1+4, and this is a 8BA. I'm not gonna take you through the unboxing of these products, as we know that usually KZ in that aspect is the bare minimum. I will say, however, that in terms of the tips, although they are nice, and I'm guessing some might even use, and I myself have used them as well on occasions. I prefer always to stick with either my KB Euro 7s, which I have over here, or then the GVP wide bores. These tips usually work very well with me and with the IEMs that I listen to. In terms of power sources, I've used my Q15 from File, and then I focused on my Yuki, mainly on my Yuki and on my TP50 for the dongles, connected up with my NX7. Anyway, what do I have here then? Well, I thought that for me to be able to properly position the ZS10 Pro 2, it would only make sense obviously to have the ZSN Pro, and then to have two other offerings from KZ which are also 1+1, is the Krila and the ZNA. Both of these two, well, the Krila was unfortunately, I mean, I'm not going to criticize the marketing practices of KZ. They do whatever they want to do, but the reality is, you know, sometimes if there was just a little bit more modesty, it would help them out a little bit. That's just my opinion. And with regards to the Krila, automatically, because of all the emphasis that was placed on this being an amazing IEM that was going to beat $1,000 IEMs and so on and so on and so forth, that kind of made people, you know, look at the item in a different eye, and instead of giving it its deserved merit and its deserved value, because I mean, let's face it, the Krila, you can pick it up as low as $17 right now, and for $17 a 1+1 with switches and everything, you can't really complain, honestly. Let's be realistic. Let's forget the KZ politics. Okay, let's look at the product on its own. It's a well-built IEM. Focus would be nice. Focus. Sometime today would be nice. No, it doesn't feel like it. Anyway, it's a nicely built product. You know, it's well tuned. The switches actually do something. So the ZNA also suffered from somewhat of a maybe misunderstanding of what was the idea and what was the design premise of the ZNA. It's actually got a 12mm dynamic driver, which I haven't seen anything from KZ come out since with this driver, and I actually would like to, because the driver is a very decent driver. Trust me, out of the 12mm earphones that they launched, this is without a doubt the best one. And then, as I said, I've got the original ZS10 Pro, and then the Pro 2. In essence, from what I was able to understand, basically the BA is the same BA, although having been improved, and the dynamic driver is also an improved dynamic driver. And what that ultimately translates is into a tuning which is more polished and less peaky, as was the Pro X initially. I mean, there's really, let's be again realistic. I can't really wholeheartedly criticize it, because, you know, it wasn't a bad IEM, and as far as I was able to ascertain, it's one of the most popular IEMs that KZ has made. You know, with a little bit of tinkering around, you can actually resolve some of those peaks that it's got in the mids, upper mids, and treble. But this does all of that for us. It resolves those peaks and those issues that can maybe sometimes be a little bit fatiguing, although it is a little bit overly energetic above, let's say, 7-8K, and that over energy, and I guess it's down to as well the fact that the BA is on the nozzle, that over energy that's present does have its shortcomings with certain songs. Some female vocals sound a little bit too colored. You know, you notice the BA timbre, cymbals can be a little bit splashy. But overall, the reality is this. I mean, this is like $17-18 as well. This is a very nicely sounding, very competent little IEM. Okay, very competent. Next to this first group here, I've now got the OnePlus 4 ZS10 Pro 2, which is basically a continuation of what was started out. Well, I don't have here the original ZS10, but I've got here the ZS10 Pro, the ZS10 Pro, which is that one over the top there, which for me was even better than the ZS6, which was the top of the line KZ back in 2018, 2019. In essence, the shell has kind of maintained itself, the overall appearance and everything. What they've basically improved is how the BAs are tuned and the selection of BAs that are using. So that has changed. They are now, instead of mixing and matching various models, they've just now stuck with the 31736 and tuned them properly, and the result is it's easy to hear. They then, after that, launched the ZS10 Pro X, which again I believe used a better implementation of the dynamic driver. I don't think it was the same dynamic driver. I like the overall appearance, although it kind of maintained a high degree of similarity, and the BAs again were slightly readjusted. That allowed for a sound which was now better tuned and compared to the original, much more polished. Some of that BA timbre was taken away. It is a very nice IEM, and when I tested it almost 2 years now, I think, a year and a half ago, I said it was definitely one of the better budget OnePlus 4s you could get. This and the ST5 from TRN, and now of course the current OnePlus 4. I like this design, with the faceplate and the screws on the faceplate and everything. From again what I was able to ascertain, this is a totally new design. The dynamic driver that's being used here, it seems very similar to the dynamic driver used on the ZSN. I mean, at least visually by looking at it, it does seem very similar, and it does seem to be an upgrade over the previous models. And as I mentioned, they're using the 31736 BAs to complement, let's say, the upper mids and treble. There's no tuning switches. There is tuning switches, which is contrary to what we had in the previous models. And these tuning switches do allow for a little subtle change of the tuning. It's not major, but it does allow for a little subtle change. I'm using it in, as you can see there, I'm using it in all the switches on except for the fourth one, which is off, which according to them does give a 1 dB attenuation for the higher frequencies, although I really didn't see that when I measured it, and I mean you can't even hear that difference. What I can hear and what I did hear was a very nice sounding OnePlus 4 IEM. I mean, this goes for like $34 give or take. And honestly, for that price, a OnePlus 4 sounding as good as this is commendable. It's got the right amount of energy across the board, no bloatiness, no nothing, and the BAs especially have been very well implemented. To position it, or to kind of give an idea of where this sits, I brought here obviously the CCA Rhapsody, and I brought here the VZ10 from Joy Audio, which is also part of the KZ group. Compared to the VZ10, this is just a better IEM, period. I mean, that's $79. This was that was $79. Let me finish with that one, and I'll mention this. That was $79. This is half the price, and it's got better performance. I think the biggest problem with the VZ10 was the fact that it's not really the 7mm driver that's an issue, because that 7mm driver is a very competent 7mm driver. As far as I know, it's the same as the one used. It's the XUN driver used in the HM20 from CCA, and also used now in the Hydro. So it's a very good driver. I think that the issue there was the way that they tuned it. They mellowed it out too much, and so the overall sound is a sound which is very much mid-centric, vocal focused, and can get a little bit fatiguing. Although it's got the tuning switches and everything, I mean, it is not on the same level, as for me at least, as the ZS10 Pro 2. And you know, considering it's a big shell, they could have actually done something a little bit more special here, in my opinion. Hey, who knows? Maybe that 12mm driver would have been a good option for this. And then I've got here the CCA Rhapsody, which is the CCA Rhapsody and the Trio are probably two of the better or two of the best even products that they've launched. The differences between the two is basically down to the timbre and the tonality, as one it's got BAs, which is the case of the Rhapsody, and the other one is an all DD affair. This uses basically the same 31736s as the ZSN Pro 10.2. Not ZSN, the ZS10 Pro 2. My apologies, all of these names can get a little bit confusing. But then it uses two 8mm drivers, one more focused on the bass frequencies and the other one kind of a full range where it enters as well into the mids. So that's that there. And then finally here the AS16 Pro X with the original AS16 Pro. The biggest difference that I found here was that they attenuated the bass, which I really honestly didn't think was an issue. I thought that the bass level there on the AS16 Pro was very good. The problem there was that without using the impedance adapter, the AS16 was a little bit had a very early pinna gain, which made things sound a little bit off, and then after the peak it dropped off. With the impedance adapter, which is a 30 ohm impedance adapter, you were able to take away that bump that it had in that early pinna gain, so make the pinna gain more progressive, peaks at about the same level, and then as well make that attenuation then coming down less aggressive. And that's where then you find the difference between this and the Pro X. The Pro X doesn't have that attenuation. It's got let's say, you could to a certain extent consider a better executed mids, upper mids and treble. But the problem with the execution of the mids, upper mids and treble here is that because they've lost some of the energy in the bass, you notice definitely way more BA timbre. It's very easy to notice, and so things like cymbals and you know can be a little bit splashy, can be a little bit fatiguing, and if you don't choose your source carefully, it can be an issue. For example, the Q15 was fine, but if I used an ESS based DAC or dongle, then this was not it was not at its best. Anyway, let's then just do a very quick comparison here between the various selections and the three main IEMs that I chose. The ZSN, the Pro 2, as I was mentioning, very nicely done bass. It's got the right amount of fun and engagement. Doesn't really bleed into the mids that much. It's got a nice progressive pinna gain, well executed male vocals. The female vocals are the ones that can sometimes be a little bit too much because of the way that the BA has been tuned. But overall, you can't. I cannot sit here and fault it, because the truth is it sounds really good. If I was to compare it to the original, it's superior to the original ZSN Pro. I mean, it's a better IEM. This is a better IEM. Compared then to the ZNA, that's got more bass. That's a more bass heavy, more less balanced IEM. However, the treble there or the upper frequencies there being handled to a certain extent by the BA are you could say better executed because of that extra bass energy that you have. So it kind of mellows things down, and you don't sometimes notice as much the BA timbre there as you will notice it here on occasions with certain songs. For example, and to give you an idea of what, like Elephant from Karel Dubois is a song where you can pick that up quite easily. However, Cecile Norby's You, it sounds very good on both. If I go to something like Holding On from Gregory Porter, it just sounds better here, although the warmth that you get from there in terms of the timbre and tonality, at least for me, it's quite satisfying. It's very nice. Let me see here. Labial Dance sounds regrets, for example, from Chris Botti. There, it sounds good, but you can notice and you can hear that it sounds overly colored. It sounds thick. Over here, the balance is way more, very much, balanced. It's just a better execution compared to the Krila, where this overshadows the Krila is in the bass. Although the Krila's got the switches and I've got all the switches on, this overshadows the Krila in terms of the bass. However, in terms of the mids, upper mids, and treble, I actually think the Krila is a better execution because you don't notice that BA timbre. I mean, when I say you notice the BA timbre, I'm saying this considering obviously the prices, and you know, we have to be judgmental, or we have to be critical according to that as well. If this was $1,000 IEM, it's a different story. If this was a $500 IEM, it's a different story. When we are talking about sub $20 IEMs, you can give a bigger margin of tolerance to those things. So the differences here are minimal, but this has a better execution of the upper mids and treble than the Pro 2, in my opinion. This is loses out in the bass, like as I mentioned, and there's just a little bit more engagement here than the Krila. The Krila, you could actually sum it up by saying the Krila is more audiophile. This is more fun. Okay, although of the two, the one that will probably be a little bit more versatile ultimately with more music genres, well, I think that the ZSN Pro 2 will edge out slightly the Krila. Okay, so that's that one out of the way. Let's talk now straight away about the AS16 Pro X and the AS16 Pro. I'll be very frank, I prefer the AS16 Pro with the impedance adapter, mainly because I don't have that BA timbre in my face. This year, because of the way that it's been tuned, it just at lower volumes it's fine. You got a lot of detail. Technicalities are fantastic, but at the moment you start cranking it up a little bit, no, it just gets too much. So I prefer overall the AS16 Pro. I think the balance that they struck between the bass, the mids, and the upper mids and the treble is more successful. Even though I would have liked just a little bit more energy there in the upper mids and treble, but I can easily trade that extra energy and that loss of a little bit more details, a little bit more twinklies and sparklies that I get on the Pro X. Maybe a slightly smaller sound stage there as compared to here. I can trade that off for the fact that I don't have that sibilant, that sense of sibilance being very present when I start pushing the volume. So in my opinion, not wanting to not give the Pro X its deserved value, the AS16 Pro is a better IM for me, and it's actually a pity because I don't think it would have been that difficult for them to just have adjusted it slightly and they would have had a fantastic IEM here. I mean, fair enough, the $40 that it costs is not too much considering it's a 8BA, but the previous model was better. And then finally here, the ZSN Pro 2. Compared to the original, there's no comparison. This is just a better IEM. Not that the Pro 2 was a bad IEM, but that's 2018, 2019 tuning. It's very much similar to the ZSN, just more polished than the ZSN to a certain extent, but it uses the same dynamic driver. Anyway, so that's it. Compared to the VZ10, as I mentioned, it's just again a better IEM. So those two automatically out of the equation. Now compared here to the Pro X. Yes, you got the switches. That in itself straight away is an advantage because you're stuck with that tuning, while here you can adjust things ever so slightly. And that, I think, is going to be the biggest thing, the biggest reason for you to go for this over that. Here you can adjust and make sure that it suits you. Over there you're stuck with that, and that's it, Once you found the position that works best here for you on the Pro 2, and you compare it with the Pro X, it's interesting to see how the differences come down to very much the quality of the timbre and the quality of the tonality, and how the technicalities come out. In terms of the treble and upper mids and treble, this year has got a better execution, but you only really notice that extra polish, that extra matureness in the way that it's been done when you start pushing the volume a little bit more. At lower volumes they will very much be equal, but without a doubt this is the better IEM. Okay, this is the better IEM. So far, you can say that it's beating all of the IEMs as compared to the Rhapsody. I would say they are comparable. Both have the tuning switches, both have got very much similar setups. The difference here is on how the bass is executed in one versus the other. The bass here is a gliding style bass, there it's a tucked style bass. You can yes change that profile, that tuck, and it will come down to what your preference is. We have a situation here which is kind of very similar to the ZS10 and the 5 from ZS. For me personally, I find that the Rhapsody, especially in the 1100 position, so that I've got a little bit more bass, although it might maybe saturate a little bit more the upper mids and treble as compared to the Pro 2. The reality is I like that tonality that comes from here ever so slightly over here than on the ZS10 Pro 2. Mind you, we're talking, you know, if I was to give a percentage of which one I'll pen towards to, I would say this would be like a 55-45. You know, they are very, very, very good sounding IEMs. I mean, especially now that you can even get the Rhapsody for a slightly cheaper price. I mean, it's like I said, it's a ZS10 and 5 situation. You decide which one you want. You know, bass is very well executed. There's no bleeding to the mids. It's fantastic bass. It's kind of very, very similar to the bass of the ZS10 Pro 2 actually. Just a little bit more polished, that's all. But then the implementation of the BAs and the way that they've married the BAs into the mids has been done flawlessly, very much like in the Rhapsody. So it sounds, you know, smooth, detailed, right balance of, you know, the right amount of energy for the male vocals, for the female vocals, technically very capable. I mean, again, compared to the Rhapsody, we are trading blows here, and these blows will be down to how the bass from behind is then is set up by your personal preference. They are both very good. I would say confidently, without any doubt, that the ZS10 Pro 2, the Rhapsody, and the Trio are up there as you know, the best hybrid options that you can get from KZ and CCA, without a question. You know, they are really, really well executed. Any one of them with slight nuances, slight differences in terms of, like I said, in terms of the overall tonality and so on, but on the whole, very, very similar. There's not huge day and night differences. All right. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graphs, and we'll wrap it up. All right. You take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for this triple review, let's put it that way. And I'm going to show, well, I'm going to start off with the AS16 Pro. This is the original AS16 Pro. As you can see, and as I mentioned earlier in the review, it had this very early pin gain, which made this section of the mids become very forward, and it just sounded awkward. As for the bass itself, it's not as bloated as what you might think. Its biggest, let's say, drawback was really honestly this, and then you know, after the 3K peak, the drop was significant, and it kind of did make the upper mids or part of the upper mids and the treble become a little bit subdued. The benefit of that obviously was the fact that you didn't get any BA timbre and so on and so forth. But anyway, some of us started playing around back when it was released, and we found that by adding a impedance adapter, a 30 ohm impedance adapter, we basically maintained the bass. We did away with that bump there, that forwardness, and still maintained more or less the pin again, peaking a little bit before 3K, and it kind of just rearranged this section. But by rearranging this section, we resolved at least one of the problems, which was the forwardness of the mids there, and the overall sound that came out was a much more pleasant sound. At least for me, it's a much more pleasant sound. What I'm going to show you now is the let me just take away this one, is the current AS16
Pro X. And you know, it would be wrong from me to say that, oh no, this is bad, it's wrong, it's not. No, because it isn't bad. Okay, it's just that because they've, and now let me put the AS16 Pro with the impedance adapter, because they have dropped slightly at the base, but have increased. This here basically maintains itself very similar. What they've basically done is increase the energy level here between, let's say, 3 and 8K. But this increase was so significant that the BA timbre, which you know, we were trying to avoid being prominent, comes out. It becomes way more prominent, way more significant. I've ordered a second set of AS16 Pro X's to try and attempt to retune it. It's not going to be easy because of the way that the tubing has been done. It's going to be a little bit of a mission, but I'm going to try and attempt to tune it, to bring down this area here to see what is you know, what I can do. Because you know, in essence, although the bass level has come down, it's not really here where the issue is, and it's not really in the pin again. It's this increase here of the energy level, which at lower volumes, yes, it's very nice. It has brought us a sound which has got a little bit more details, more twinkles and sparkles and so on and so forth. But it just, I don't know, it should have been halfway, somewhere halfway between the two of them, somewhere, you know, I think the overall result would have been more pleasant, more satisfying. But look, it is what it is, so we can't really do much. Okay, so let's take away this here and just leave the Pro X's graph. As you can see, I mean, you know, honestly, everything sits within a relatively tight window for the most of the frequency range. We're talking about everything sitting within a more or less an 8 dB window. It's just this section here then between 2.5 and 8 that has gone above that 8 dB window. And it, you know, if it had just been a little bit lower, it would have been, honestly, it would have made the AS16 Pro X a very, very good IEM. Okay, so that's that out of the way. Let's talk about now the ZSN Pro 2, and I'm going to show you first of all the original ZSN Pro X, which is this graph, which in essence, I mean, it's not that it was a bad sounding IEM. No, it wasn't. You know, loads of bass, fun, you know, super engaging. It just then had this kind of roller coaster all over the place. You know, peak at 2.5, then a dip, then a peak again at 5, then a dip, then another peak, then some more peaks over there, although these are the ones that are a little bit more noticeable, and that BA timbre just comes out a little bit more. So what they did with the Pro 2, which is this graph that I've just put up now, is precisely fix those issues. They've added a little bit more of sub-bass energy, not a significant amount, but a little bit, and then they've retuned and taken away these bumps, and the end result, honestly, is very, very good. The Pro 2, the ZSN Pro 2, is a very nice sounding IEM. When you consider its price, you know, you just can't fault it. You can't stay, you know, I can't sit here and say, oh no, it's a mess. No. So that's the Pro 2. And then I mentioned the Krila, and I also mentioned the ZNA. The Krila is this graph. And you know, in essence, the Krila's seems like the same sort of bass, but no, when you actually listen to one and the other, no, you notice that the Pro 2 has got more bass. The bass driver is a different one. Now, what the Krila does have, which is more polished, is the way that the mids, upper mids, and treble are done. And this section of the Krila is very, very nice. Overall, which do I think is going to be still the most gratifying IEM for the majority of people? Probably the Pro 2. Because although the Krila's got the tuning switches, this is with all the tuning switches on. So this is like, let's say, the best that you can get in terms of bass. If you start using the other switches, or if you start using the other settings, they will attenuate the bass. They will bring this section here out more. Yes, the mids and upper mids and treble will be more noticeable, but they become, the overall sound becomes, in my opinion, excessively thin. So I would say they are interesting side grades. I'm not going to say the one is better than the other. They are interesting side grades. They cost about the same thing. So, interesting side grades where the Pro 2 has a slight edge in terms of being a little bit more fun and engaging. Okay, and then finally the ZS10. And I'm going to start off by showing you first the original ZS10 Pro. From like back in 2019 or 2018, actually 2018, and this was the graph, which when you look at the graph and if you actually compare it here with the ZSN Pro X, the similarities are there. You can see this is the ZS10, this is the ZS10 Pro, very similar. The difference that exists is that the ZS10 the ZS10 Pro, what they've been able to do is just make this part here of the upper mids and treble just a little bit more polished by having multiple BAs being used. Overall, I can't say that I didn't like or never liked the sound of the 10 Pro. No, I did. I actually preferred it over the ZS6, which was the time the top of the line KZ. So it's not a bad sounding IEM, okay? And basically what this needed was a little bit of a polish up, and that's exactly what they did when the ZS10 Pro X came out. And the Pro X is in essence basically the same bass, and they've just touched up on the way that the initial pinna gain is done and made it more plateaued. There's a dip here which does away with some sibilance that occurred occasionally with the previous model, and they've just made it overall a more pleasant and more satisfying sound. And the reality is the ZS10 Pro X, when I reviewed it, I mentioned it was a very good sounding IEM. Okay, and now what they've done with the 10 Pro 2 is even further improved upon the tuning. So let me take away the original, just leave the last two itinerations, which are also the ones that are more available. So they've cleaned up the bass by lowering it a little bit by lowering the impact of the mid bass, and then this part here, there's a little bit more energy there in the 5 to 7K area, but overall it's not really there that you see the biggest differences. The biggest difference that occurs here is because of that slightly reduced mid bass impact. So by cleaning the sound up a little bit, they opened up the mids completely. This setup that I'm using here is the 1110 setup. And I mean, honestly, the ZS10 Pro 2, like I said earlier, deserves its place as being, alongside the Rhapsody and the Trio, one of the three really well executed hybrids that KZ has, without a question. And if I had to choose between this and the 10 Pro X, I would choose this because this is the more polished product. It might lose a little bit in terms of the mid bass, but it's interesting because when you're actually listening to it, you don't notice that significant difference as what the graph might lead you to believe. Okay, and then as I also showed you, I compared it with a few other IEMs, namely the Joy Audio, the VZ10, which is this one, yeah, and you might think, oh, okay, but they're graphing very similar, don't they sound similar? No, I'll tell you why. Because the VZ10, let me just take away, yeah. The VZ10 is a 7mm driver. And that 7mm driver, however very competent it is, it just doesn't manage to keep up with the energy that's up top. Also, the way that this whole area here has been done with all these peaks and dips, and we are talking about a pinna gain which goes to the tune of 12 dBs, with a bass that doesn't really keep up. At lower volumes, okay, maybe you can get away with it, but it doesn't really keep up. And when you compare it with the Pro 2, the ZS10 Pro 2, it's very easy to see which, or listen and hear which is the better one. That's unquestionable. Just a little curiosity going back to the VZ10 and how I think that it's not really the driver the issue, it was just the way it was tuned. A lot of you, or some of you, might know that, for example, I'm a very big fan of the CCA HM20, which is this graph that I've put up here. I've normalized it at 500, And trust me when I say that this IEM is really good. If they had put in this sort of bass performance on the VZ10, I am positive that the acceptance, the way that the IEM was received would have been totally and completely different, because it would have changed the dynamics of the IEM completely. I mean, but let's not forget, it's got switches, so they could have made this be one of the tunings and then have the switches to then reduce the bass if that was the intention. But anyway, that's what they decided. And then finally, the other IEM that I brought out to compare was the Rhapsody. Okay, and the Rhapsody, I think I don't have to really say too much, but this is the Rhapsody in the setting that I usually like listening to it, which is the 1100, which is the one that emphasizes slightly the mid bass. In terms of mids, upper mids, and treble, I found it just ever so slightly more polished. Okay, the difference is not huge, but it's ever so slightly more polished. They're basically using the same BAs. And the difference in that is, or on that tonality, that perception, comes down to the bass that comes from behind. And it's like I was mentioning earlier as well, this is very much a ZS5 3 and 2 situation, where you have one has a tucked style bass and the other one has a more gliding style of bass. And it's down to your preference. This is basically it's as simple as that. I mean, be it the Rhapsody, be it the ZS10 Pro 2, or be it the Trio, you are talking about, well, the Trio is not really it is a hybrid, no, it's not a hybrid, it's a triple DD. Those three IEMs are really good, period. They are very, very good. Of the older, let's put it, of the ones that have come out a little bit earlier, the ZS10 Pro X is still a very, very solid IEM, as is the HM20 from CCA, another very, very solidly tuned IEM. The VZ10, in my opinion, it had all the makings to be a really good IEM, especially because they had the space to actually put a bigger driver in there, and I don't know, they just didn't consider it in the best way manner, or in the best way possible, in my opinion. Anyway, guys, this is my take on these three IEMs. I hope it was clarifying. I hope it was able to show you and let you guys have an idea of what exactly is their capabilities. The ZS10 Pro 2, definitely a winner in my books. The ZSN Pro 2, again, definite winner in my books. The only one here that is not a winner, and it's not a winner, although I'm sure that there were people that will like it, mind you, is the AS16 Pro X. And it's just down to the fact that, they I think were maybe a little bit, I don't know, in that attempt to acquire more detail and so on, they were a little bit overzealous. I mean, I'll just... This is the, let me normalize it here, so you guys, let me put this normalized at 500 hertz. Okay, that's the ZS10 Pro 2 versus the AS16, and you can see that there's similar vibes, but they should have, if they could have kept this level of the AS16 at the level of the ZS10 Pro 2, it would have been so much better, but so much better. Guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. All right, anyway, you take care now. Bye bye.